A 23-year-old sits at the kitchen table, staring at a loan bill. It shows they owe $39,000 before interest and compounding. His prized degree can't even get him a regular job interview, and his job postings have been slashed again and again, sometimes falling short of his monthly loan payments. This isn't hypothetical. It is the raw nerve of an entire generation, the raw nerve of a system that tells you a story before you're even an adult, before you can question it. Think about what actually happened at 17, maybe 18. Somebody sat you down, probably a guidance counselor, maybe a parent, and told you the most dangerous sentence in personal finance. Go to college, and you will be set. They said it with total confidence. They said it like it was gravity, and you believed them. Because why would the adults hand you a lie? A lie wrapped in a graduation gown. So you signed, you borrowed, you moved into a dorm. You did everything, right? And 4 years later, the economy handed you a receipt for $1.8 trillion in collective student debt and asked you to figure out the rest on your own. Here is what nobody calculated. For you, at that kitchen table, the average federal borrower walks out owing roughly $39,000. But that number is just the sticker price. Factor in the interest that quietly multiplies while you're job hunting. The months of minimum payments that barely touch the principal, the career opportunities you pass up because you need any paycheck. Right now, not the right paycheck, and the true cost starts looking less like an investment and more like a trap with a tassel on top. And the strangest part isn't even the debt. It is what the debt was supposed to buy. Security, stability, a clear lane into the middle class. Instead, you watch people around you who skipped the whole ceremony, building income streams that outpace what most graduates earn in their first 5 years, not through some secret loophole, not through luck, through work that was always available, but never mentioned in that office, because it didn't fit. The script, that is the part worth sitting with for a second. Not because it feels good, but because until you see the crack in that foundation, every move you make next is still built on top of it. The good news is that once you see it, you start noticing something else. You start noticing that the economy is quietly rewarding a completely different set of moves, ones that don't require a single lecture hall or a cap and gown. And some of those moves are so overlooked, so underestimated, that most people scroll right past them without a second thought. Picture two people, both 22 years old. One just crossed a graduation stage, wearing a rented gown, diploma in hand, and $39,000 in federal student debt, sitting in a portal she hasn't logged into yet. The other one never enrolled. Instead, 18 months ago, she picked up a phone for a tech startup as an entry-level sales development rep, earning $60,000 her first year. By the time her friend tossed that cap in the air, she had already deposited over $90,000 in total earnings, paid rent every single month, and owed exactly zero to anyone. Now run the numbers forward, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. That $39,000 in student loans doesn't just sit there at a typical federal interest rate. The actual payback over 10 years lands closer to $48,000 or $49,000 once you factor in what accrues while you're job hunting and settling into your first real position. Meanwhile, the person who went straight into remote sales and got decent at handling rejection is now sitting at an account executive desk. Industry salary data puts tech sales account executives somewhere between $130,000 and $185,000 a year, even if she lands on the lower end of that range. She is pulling in more than triple what her college-educated friend nets after loan payments. Now picture someone else entirely. Not stock options, not a corner office, a state-issued electrical license, a van with their name on it, and a phone that rings because a homeowner 3 streets over, needs a solar array, wired, before the federal rebate expires. That license can't be repossessed. No lender can garnish it. No employer can revoke it. During a quarterly layoff call, it sits in their back pocket and prints money every time the sun comes up. Now zoom out and look at the numbers through that lens. Entry-level solar installers pull around $51,000 a year. Top earners clear $80,000 or more. And the demand curve isn't flattening. Solar positions alone are projected to climb 42%, while EV charger projects could open thousands of new roles by 2032. Federal and state money is flooding into renewable infrastructure right now, which means the person holding that license isn't chasing work. Work is chasing them, but here is the part that actually matters. The college graduate sitting across the table with the same ambition, the same discipline, maybe even sharper test scores, isn't building an asset. They're servicing a liability. Every month, a slice of their paycheck leaves their account before they even see it, routed straight to a loan servicer. Who profits? Whether that graduate lands their dream job or ends up scanning groceries, the system sold them effort as a product and debt as the price tag. Nobody mentioned that the receipt has no resale value. Compare that to the electrician who, after a few years, decides to specialize in smart home systems or commercial solar. They aren't asking permission. They're stacking certifications the way an investor stacks dividend-paying shares. Each new credential widens the gap between what they earn and what the market can replace them for. Someone I know went from wiring houses straight out of high school to running his own crew, doing solar installs. 6 figures, no alumni network required. Just a skill the economy actually needs, and a license that proves he owns it. Now, carry that same ownership logic into a completely different arena. Global digital ad spending has crossed $600 billion a year. Most of that money flows into short-form videos. On platforms you probably scrolled through this morning. Businesses, especially small ones, without marketing departments, are desperate for someone who can turn a 15-second clip into a paying customer. The person who learns to do that doesn't own a diploma. They own a revenue lever. Every campaign they run, every client relationship they build, every case study they collect becomes a portable asset that no institution can claw back. That is the real divide this conversation keeps circling. It is not educated versus uneducated or lazy versus hardworking. It is ownership versus rental. Some paths let you accumulate things that compound. Things like licenses, client lists, and specialized knowledge, and small operations that grow while you sleep. Other paths hand you a credential that depreciates the moment you walk off that stage, while the institution that sold it keeps collecting tuition from the next class behind you. The effort was never the problem. People on both sides work brutally hard. The question is where that effort lands. Does it build something you keep or service something someone else owns? If you're going to pour years of your life into mastering a skill anyway, which skills actually let you own what comes out the other side? Here is the part nobody wants to hear. You have already seen the skills. You already know digital marketing and AI automation can pay $70,000, $90,000, even $200,000 a year without a diploma hanging on your wall. But knowing that is worth exactly zero if you do nothing different tonight. And statistically, that is exactly what most of you will do. Not because you're lazy, but because the list feels too long. And the gap between where you sit right now and where you want to be looks like a canyon you cannot cross in one jump. Here is what matters tonight. One action, one screen, 30 minutes. Pick one free tool, just one. It doesn't matter which. ChatGPT, Make, Zapier, Notion, AI. It really doesn't matter. Open it, and don't watch a tutorial first. Don't read a comparison article about which platform is best. Open it the way you would open a new app on your phone, with zero expectations, just poking around. Now find one task you already do by hand. Maybe you send the same kind of email 3 times a week. Maybe you copy numbers from one spreadsheet to another. Maybe you post on social media by logging into 3 separate apps. Take that one repetitive task and try to make the tool do it. It will be clumsy and you will get it wrong. The first automation you build will probably break before it finishes running. That is the point. You aren't trying to launch a business tonight. You're trying to break the pattern of consuming information and doing nothing with it. The difference was never talent or intelligence. It was the willingness to do something boring and small before it felt ready. A teenager running faceless Instagram pages didn't start with a strategy deck. He started by posting one piece of content and watching what happened next. That is the entire secret, hiding in plain sight. The action comes before the confidence, not after. So tonight, open one tool, automate one task, and screenshot the result. Save it in a folder on your desktop called Proof. And once that one screenshot is sitting in that folder, something quietly shifts. You stop being someone who watches videos about making money and become someone who actually made a tool do real work. That is a different identity entirely. And what most people never realize is that every single skill feeds into the next, which is exactly where things start to compound in genuinely interesting ways. Picture someone 12 months from now, sitting at their kitchen table, laptop open, an invoice just sent for work they actually know how to do. They aren't rich, and they aren't living in a penthouse, but the number in their checking account didn't come from a degree, and there is no loan officer waiting on the other end of it. That is the only honest version of this story I can give you. Now, here is what I refuse to say. I'm not going to tell you that you'll be making 6 figures by next Tuesday. I won't pretend that watching one video replaces months of awkward learning, failed pitches, and long nights where you wonder if any of this is real. The first client you land might pay you less than minimum wage. That is normal. That is what the beginning actually looks like when nobody is filming. But consider what you're actually risking here. A Skillshare subscription costs less than your phone bill. A YouTube tutorial costs you nothing but time. Time you were probably going to spend scrolling anyway. Compare that to signing a promissory note for $39,000 on a degree that might just sit in a drawer. The math isn't even close. One path buries you before you start. The other lets you walk away any Tuesday you feel like it, with no debt collectors, no paperwork, and no 4-year gap on your resume. That is your exit door, and it stays unlocked the entire time. You aren't burning a single bridge by trying this. You still keep your current job, and you still pay your rent. You're just spending your evenings building something that compounds quietly in the background. One small skill stacked on another, until the gap between what you know and what someone will pay for closes. So here is the only ask. Pick one path from everything we talked about today. Not 2, not 3, just one. Give it 30 days of focused, honest effort. Not passive watching, but actually doing the work. Sending the emails, building the portfolio, making the calls. If it doesn't click, after 30 real days, you walk away clean. But if it does, you'll understand why people say skills are the new degree. Drop a comment and tell me which skill you'd bet your next 30 days on. And please, be honest about why. I'm curious whether most of you lean toward the trades, or the digital side, or something nobody here has even mentioned yet.